Hey, what's going on, y'all? I wanted to share a train of thought that I've been having pretty much since the new year, maybe slightly before, and something that I think is important for us to all think about, be sensitive to, and wise about. And it's an aspect of like our relationships with people, whether that be our friendships, relationships with a significant other, whether that be work-related relationships, ministry relationships, yeah, just basic friendships. A trait that I think that we really need to like grab hold of, whether you're a believer or not. I think it's an important trait, but especially like those of us who follow Christ. It's an aspect of love that sometimes I don't think we fully grasp, and we try to justify whether or not we live this trait out. And that trait is forgiveness. And when you hear that, you probably think like there's nothing deep to that, there's nothing to that. But I think if we are honest with ourselves, we probably struggle with forgiveness more than we would like to admit to other people. And we probably harbor a little bit of unforgiveness and bitterness and anger and disappointment towards people, and just don't share it with others, even though it exists in our heart. And so like the reason why I think that's important is, number one, like in Timothy, where it says like the love of others, or the love of many will grow cold. I think it starts with unforgiveness. You know what I mean? Like there's other things that like make our love grow cold, like just selfishness, greed, selfish ambition, like trying to pursue ourselves. But I think forgiveness is something that sits in our heart kind of quietly and affects the way that we treat other people, and affects the way that we pursue relationships, and it affects whether or not we are intentional with reconciling our friendships with other people. And we live in a day and age where once you're offended, this might not be everybody, but I'm sure you've either seen this happen, or it's happened to you, or maybe this is you. But when someone's offended, it's almost like they immediately write that person off as, oh, you can't be my friend anymore, or you disrespected me, and that's it, I gotta cut you loose. And sometimes the offense could be someone challenging your train of thought, challenging your belief, challenging your lifestyle. It could come from something that's maybe not a bad place. Someone trying to help you grow in life. And because it rubbed you the wrong way, or because you felt attacked because of your train of thought, your belief, your lifestyle, you got offended to the point where you felt like you were disrespected, and you wanted to walk away from a friendship, walk away from a relationship. And not that that person really needs your forgiveness, because in that situation, I don't even know if that's an offense that needs to be forgiven. But if you feel that way, I think in your heart you need to ask yourself, am I harboring some kind of bitterness, offense, or unforgiveness for a selfish reason or a dumb reason altogether? And if you consider somebody a friend, my question is, if they were ever your friend, or you ever consider them a friend, every friendship is worth fighting for. So how hard have you fought for your friendships before you let them go? And the reason why this has been a train of thought of mine since the new year was because before the new year, I saw like a lot of comments on Instagram, Facebook, social media, whatever, where people were talking about, oh, in 2020, in 2019, if you did me wrong, I'm cutting you off in 2020. Or if you're not helping me grow, I'm cutting you off in 2020. And just kind of all these things where it's like, we're trying to, it sounds cool, but at the end of the day, like when we cut people off, we're just making ourselves more isolated. And I don't think that we're created to be alone. I know we're not created to be alone. We're created to be in relationship with people, to be in community with people. And so it just makes me worried, especially us that are followers of Christ, that we're so easy to give up on people, even people who we call our friends. And even in another aspect, even if somebody does sin against you. So that first example was kind of like, yeah, maybe somebody's challenging you in your thoughts, your lifestyle, but they didn't really sin against you. You know what I mean? That's one aspect. But in this aspect, like even if somebody sins against you, like they deliberately like lie against your name and slander you, they hook up with your girl or your boyfriend or whatever, they stole from you, you guys got in a heated argument and they started saying personal, like real like deep stuff that cut you at the core. I just don't think that we grow as people in learning how to endure relationships and endure tough times if we can't forgive. And this might sound cliche, but we really do have to put it in perspective of the cross. If we think about how much we've offended Jesus, and I'm not talking about before you've become a believer, even while you've been quote unquote a Christian or a believer, if you think about the times you've offended God and the amount of times where he's extended mercy and forgiveness, and if God were standing next to you every time you offended him, and he responded the way that we respond when we're offended, yet still gave the same forgiveness that he offers us, like, doesn't that change the game for us? Like, I know I've not always represented Christ well. I know I've not always stood my ground and had courage to speak out, and have walked away from situations being like, man, like, I probably hurt God's feelings right there. He's probably like, man, that was such a great opportunity and you didn't seize the moment, or man, why did you treat that person like that, or why did you say that? But at the end of the day, like, his mercy and his forgiveness is so constant and is always available. And not only is it there, but it's a restorative type of forgiveness. It's not just like oh yeah, I know I'm forgiven, but it's like this forgiveness that touches the depths of your heart and lets you know, like, my intimacy is still available. My love is still available the moment you confess and the moment we reconcile. You know, and for us, like, especially if you're not married, forgiveness is something that you want to learn how to walk in, because when you're waking up next to somebody every single morning for the rest of your life when you're married, and you're two different people learning how to live a cohesive life, you're gonna have moments of friction. And if you haven't practiced, like, not just to forgive, like people say, oh, forgive, but I don't necessarily have to forget, or whatever that lame thing is, right? But to not just forgive, like, verbally and say, oh yeah, I forgive them, but to, like, actively pursue reconciliation. Like, after I say I forgive somebody, to pursue being on one accord with them again. Like, pursue being able to talk to them, pursue being able to go out to lunch with them, pursue being able to be in community with them again, and not just say, oh, I forgive them, but then in your heart, whenever they walk around, you really have some kind of feeling inside. Or whenever you see them with someone else, you really are low-key tempted to kind of, like, you know, cast a glance of disdain, or, you know what I'm trying to say, like, you might not be talking trash, you might not be fighting with them, but you know in your heart you're still holding on to something that they've done. And I just think that we will grow in our ability to love people, whether that's people in our family, people at work, people who we've been friends with, or whether that's you know, our spouse or our children or whoever. I think we need to actively assess what forgiveness looks like in our life, according to the cross and according to what Jesus says about forgiveness, to forgive 70 times 7, and to not let your love grow cold, to not come to a point to say, well, that person is, like, unlovable now. They have offended me, sinned against me, hurt my feelings, but, you know, to say, you know what, like, I want to make sure that this relationship is reconciled. Because you never know what's going to be on the other side for that other person too. I could share a time with you where I had offended somebody very, very bad. And I offended this person, and I actually didn't even know that the person knew I offended them. I did something behind his back. And I'm kind of just moving on with my life as if nothing happened, because I didn't think that this person knew. Well, it turns out that our relationship was kind of going a little weird, and I'm thinking in my mind, like, our relationship is kind of going opposite ends just because we don't live in the same city anymore. We're in different, like, stages of life. So, you know, life is just kind of taking us apart. But I didn't know that this person found out that I had been shady behind their back. And this person just felt the Lord telling them, like, hey, you know this piece of information, and you know that Matt has offended you, but I'm calling you to reconcile that relationship with Matt. I'm calling you to call him up, sit down with him, let him know that you know, but then pursue forgiveness and being on one accord with him again, because that's one of your friends, that's one of your brothers in Christ, and my mercy and my forgiveness for you is constant, and that's the way it should be with your relationship with people on this earth. So anyways, man, this dude, my homie, called me up. We sat down. He told me everything that he found out that he knew. And then he told me, like, you know, like, it's been hard for me and I've been wrestling, but I forgive you, man. Like, God's been challenging me to forgive you. And to this day, this was like over 10 years ago, to this day, that has been a staple, like, for my life, on what it means and what it looks like to fight for friendships and to forgive and to reconcile relationships. It really showed me Christ. It showed me God, like, to a degree where, like, he will forever be a better person than me. Because I know I know now, I've experienced, like, after cutting somebody so deep, for them to say, I forgive you and I want to still be boys with you. And it might not be like all the same tomorrow. It might not be perfect in our friendship next week, but I'm willing to actively pursue being on one accord again and being boys again. And every time I reflect on that, I'm just so grateful that my friend did not give up on me, and that I'm able to still call him, that we're able to still talk, we're able to still have transparent conversations, because it really would hurt my heart. Even though I was the one wrong, like, man, the fact that, like, he had so much forgiveness in his heart to allow me to, like, still be around him. Like, yeah, it means a lot. It means a lot. It means a lot. So for you who have been offended, you know, just think about what we've done to offend the Lord and how he's forgiven us. Not just, like, forgiven us, like, in head knowledge, like, oh yeah, I know God's forgiven me. I know God's forgiven me. But God's forgiven you to the point where it's a restorative forgiveness, where he brings you back to a place of intimacy. No matter how much you've sinned against him, he brings you back to a place of nearness to him. And that's what reconciliation should look like with us, where we don't just forgive, but we forgive in pursuit of being near that person again and reconciling our relationships. So yeah, that's been a training thought, man. Let's grow in our patience with each other, man. Let's grow in our mercy and our forgiveness with each other. And let's not let the love in our hearts grow cold, like the scriptures say, because it's happening. But I plead with you to not let it be you. Love people well, love people deeply, fight for your friendships, fight for your family. Some of us have been cut deep by siblings, by parents, by children, by cousins, by uncles. I mean, some of us have been cut deep. But you don't want to be at the end of your life and just look back and have years of unforgiveness, years of bitterness, years of resentment, because we wouldn't actively forgive and seek reconciliation, being able to sit down with people again, talk to people again, go out to lunch with people again. So I love y'all, yo, and I hope that encourages somebody. I hope that inspires somebody. I hope that touches someone's heart, because we need each other. So yeah, love y'all. God bless.